نسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يرزقنا حسن النية. We ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions. Let us begin, insha'Allah. In mentioning the personal obligatory knowledge, we got up to the point, we spoke about the kufr, beliefs, actions and sayings, the things that take a person out of al-Islam. Then we spoke about certain rules that pertain to the apostate person, to the person who was a Muslim and then became a non-Muslim. We spoke about that extensively. Now we're going to go on to the next chapter, inshallah. As usual, I will recite, I will read the Arabic, and then I will translate, and then if there is any explanation that I can provide, then I will do that, inshallah. So again, let's make our intentions sincerely for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. قال المؤلف رحمه الله فصل. The author said, a chapter. Oh, this is a chapter. الشرح أن هذا فصل معقود لبيان أنه يجب على كل مكلف الالتزام أوامر الله تعالى، وأنه يدخل فيما أوجبه الله الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. An explanation is that this is a chapter that has been put together to clarify that among what is obligatory upon every accountable person is to stick to the commands of Allah, the Exalted, and also that what is included in that is what Allah Ta'ala, or rather what is included in what Allah made an obligation is for a person to command the lawful and obligatory and to prohibit that which is haram, sinful. So this chapter is going to speak about how not only is it an obligation upon us to do certain things such as actively pray and fast and so on, and not only is it an obligation upon us to refrain from sins, to refrain from these sinful matters, not only is that an obligation, but also what is an obligation is for us to command others who we see leaving out some of the obligations to perform those obligations. That is an obligation upon us. Of course, in a soft way when that is required and most beneficial, one would advise like this. Or also, it's an obligation upon us to prohibit somebody from doing something haram. When we see them doing something sinful, we reprimand them for that, be it verbally, but we reprimand them for that, or we advise them not to do that in a kind and soft way, because usually it is in the kind and soft way that another person understands, is willing to give you some time to explain yourself to explain themselves to you, and then they will take on board, they're more likely to take on board what you are saying. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna Allah yuhibbu rifqa fil amri kullih. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, indeed, Allah has raised the status of being gentle in many matters. In the hadith, literally, if you read it literally, you might say it means in all matters. It means most matters, in many matters, generally in all matters. But there are times at which being very strict and letting it be known that something has displeased you, and even raising one's voice. This is something that is good. So the point being made in this chapter is that it's an obligation upon us to do obligations and stay away from sins. And that isn't all. But if we see others not doing the obligations, or we see them performing, doing sins, then we need to advise them. This is an obligation. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: يجب على كل مكلف أداء جميع ما أوجبه الله عليه. The author said it is an obligation upon every accountable person to perform all of that which Allah made an obligation upon him. الشرح: قال العلماء: الصبي إذا بلغ وجب عليه أن ينوي أداء ما أوجب الله عليه من ترك المعاصي وأداء الفرائض. Explanation: the scholars said that when a child becomes pubescent, it is an obligation upon him or her to intend to perform all of what Allah made obligatory upon them. Be it that they are obligated to abandon sins, to stay away from sins, stay clear of sins. That is an obligation. To intend to stay clear of sins, to intend, that is an obligation. And to intend to perform the obligations. So this intention, the Shaykh continues, أول ما يبلغ ينوي في قلبه يقول أعمل ما فرضه الله علي فأؤدي الواجبات وأجتنب المحرمات. i.e., he says, as soon as he becomes pubescent, he or she intends in their heart. For example, by saying, I will perform everything that Allah Ta'ala made an obligation upon me. And I will therefore perform all of the obligatory matters and stay well clear of the haram matters. This is something that you should teach your child, that when you, as soon as you become pubescent, make this intention. This is an obligation upon you. See why the scholars said this? So, see, the person does not waste any time. The parent doesn't waste any time. The parent informs their child, make this intention. You are now pubescent. This is a special time. You are now accountable. The sins that you commit, they will be written down against you. So intend right now. Set your goal. Let yourself know your mission statement. Your goal, your mission, which is that you firmly intend for the sake of Allah also, that you will perform all of the obligations and that you will stay away from all of the haram. This is something that should be ingrained into the child's heart when it gets close to pubescence. Many, subhanallah, many parents, they miss out on this. Many children, you can look at it both ways. You can look at it from the side of the parents. They miss out teaching their children this, and they miss out on great reward. And from the children's side, many of them are not told to do this. Many of them are not told to practice. Many of them, this new lens that they have, imagine this new lens that they have, they are not told how and where to focus it. Here, the analogy is of the lens, which is being likened to pubescence. When they become pubescent, they are not, many of them, many children are not directed correct, into the correct place. They are not directed. Their efforts to come are not channeled down a particular path. They're given this lens and they're told, take it. As though they're being told, take it, do whatever you want with it. Look left, look right, look whatever you want with it. As opposed to a parent who tells the child, intend now, for the sake of Allah, that you're going to do all the obligations and stay away from all of the haram matters. Make the intention now. And then be true to this for as long as you live. Just keep it in your mind, keep it in your heart, that when you became pubescent, you intended for the sake of Allah that this would be the case, that you will be an obedient slave to Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, serving yourself by obeying Allah, attaining reward, staying away from haram. The child should be taught this. It is good for the child to be taught this before it becomes pubescent, so that even if the child becomes pubescent at a time when the guardian or the parents are not around, they may be in a different house, they may be asleep, so the child knows that this is upon me. The child has taken responsibility. The child needs to have, it's important that the child has an intuitive nature. Not everything is taught to the child by way of modeling the behavior. Mind you, modeling the behavior is very, very important. Very, 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 very important. But it doesn't stop there. The child, the parent establishes within the child this habit of controlling its curiosity, working things out by itself, giving the child certain responsibilities and tasks to do, telling the child that your guardian or your mother or your father will not always be here to guide you. So, and this is the case also. I'll mention this a little more later, but the child, for example, is taught before it becomes pubescent how it would know that it is pubescent. We'll speak about that a little later when we speak about matters that relate to uh, nocturnal emission with regards to the male, for example, and how the male would recognize it. If the child wakes up in the night and finds something on his undergarment and did not know that it was spermatic fluid, got up, did istinja, performed the shape of the prayer of Al-Fajr, thinking that it was Al-Fajr. Later, when the time of Al-Dhuhr comes, they tell their mother or father, this is what happened. The mother and father recognizes, yes, now you're pubescent, but you've been pubescent and you missed an obligatory prayer. You thought you were praying, you missed an obligatory prayer. You did an invalid act of worship because you didn't do your ghusl. That's not a good start. Anyway, I digress slightly. Although the digression is beneficial, I'll come back to it when I mention the different signs of al-mani, inshallah. So, قال المؤلف رحمه الله: ويجب عليه أن يؤديه على ما أمره الله به من الإتيان بأركانه وشروطه ويجتنب مبطلاته. The author said it is an obligation upon him, upon the person, to perform all of these matters as Allah ordered them to be, by performing all of the integral parts of the worships, the fulfilling the conditions of the worships, and by staying clear of the invalidators of those of the acts of worship in question. الشرح: يجب أداء الفرائض التي فرضها الله على عباده من صلاة وصيام وزكاة وحج وغير ذلك على الوجه الذي أمر الله به أن تفعل هذه الفرائض من تطبيق الأركان والشروط. It is an obligation to perform the obligations that Allah made obligatory upon the slaves, whether it be prayer, fasting, zakah, hajj, or other than them, in the way that Allah ordered for them to be performed, for these obligations to be performed, by fulfilling the integrals and the conditions. وقوله ويجتنب مبطلاته يفهم منه أنه يجب على المرء أن يعرف ما يبطل هذه الفرائض حتى يجتنبه. When the Shaykh said a person must avoid their invalidators, the invalidators of these acts, it is understood from this that it's an obligation upon a person to know what invalidates these obligatory acts, such that a person would avoid them. So a person needs to learn not only how to do an act, but what would render it invalid, so that they can protect themselves from the act being judged as invalid. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: ومن ويجب عليه أمر من رآه تارك شيء منها ويجب عليه أمر من رآه تارك شيء منها أو يأتي بها على غير وجهها بالإتيان بها على وجهها. The author said, it is an obligation upon a person to order the one that they see leaving even a part of these matters, or they see someone doing one of these matters in a way that they shouldn't be. They order them to do it as they should. الشرح: يجب على الشخص المكلف أن يأمر من رآه تارك شيء من فرائض الله بأدائها، ويأمر من رآه يأتي بشيء من هذه الفرائض على غير وجهها، أي غير الوجه الذي تصح به، أن يأتي بها على الوجه الذي تصح به. هذا إن كان يخل بفرض أو يأتي بمبطل مجمع عليه عند الآئمة. أما من رآه يخل بمختلف فيه فلا ينكر عليه إلا فلا ينكر عليه فلا ينكر عليه إلا أن يعلم أنه يعتقده فرضا أو مبطلا. The author said it's an obligation upon the accountable person to order the one that he sees leaving out one of the obligations. It's an obligation upon him to order him to do it, and to order the one that he sees doing one of the obligations but not properly. One should order this person to do it. One should order this person to do it properly, the way that it is valid. This is if, for example, this person is falling short in doing an obligation, or this person does and commits an invalidator of the act that is invalid by consensus. It's judged as being invalid by consensus. It's judged as being invalidating by consensus according to all of the imams, the scholars, the mujtahids. As for if someone saw another person falling short in something that the scholars disagreed about, some said it's okay, some said it's not, then a person does not reprimand that person except if one knew that that person believes this matter to be an obligation which they missed, or one knows that that person believes this matter to be, that they did, to be an invalidator. Ah. Here you would tell them. Here you would tell them. قال النووي في شرح حديث من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره. Al-Hafiz al-Nawawi, he said about the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, the one who knows of a haram matter, then let him change it. He said, وأما قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم فليغيره. As for the saying of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, if you know of haram, then put a stop to it, change it. فهو أمر إيجاب بإجماع الأمة. And Nawawi said, it is a command. The Prophet commanded us, then let this person change it. He commanded this as an obligation. And this is by consensus, the consensus of this nation, of the Muslims. No. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: ويجب عليه قهره على ذلك إن قدر عليه. It is an obligation upon a person to by force a person, if he is able to force a person to do the obligation or to refrain from haram. الشرح: من علم أن إنسانا لا يؤدي هذه الفرائض صحيحة أو يتركها بالمرة وكان لا يمتثل إلا بالقهر يجب أن يقهره على ذلك، أي أن يرغمه إن استطاع. Explanation: if a person knows that a human being, that a person does not perform the obligations correctly, or he doesn't do them at all, and he is not obeying, he is not conforming, he's not listening, except that he won't listen except by force, then it's an obligation upon this. It is obligatory to force this person to do that obligation or to stay away from that haram, if one is able. وإلا وجب عليه الإنكار بقلبه إن عجز عن القهر والأمر، وذلك أضعف الإيمان، أي أقل ما يلزم الإنسان عند العجز. Otherwise, if a person is not able to force this person to do that obligatory thing or leave out that haram matter, then it is an obligation upon this person to hate, to reprimand that person in his heart, to hate it in the heart. This is when he's not able to force this person and to order him. And this is the least a person can do when he is unable to do anything else. To hate in the heart. This is the least that a person can do. الشرح: أن الذي لا يستطيع أن يقهر أو أن يأمر الشخص الذي يترك بعض الفرائض أو يأتي بها على غير وجهها، بأن علم أنه يصلي صلاة فاسدة أو يصوم صياما فاسدا أو يحج حجا فاسدا، وجب عليه الإنكار بالقلب، أي الكراهية لفعل هذا الإنسان المخالف للشرع بقلبه، فإن أنكر بقلبه سلم من المعصية وهذا أضعف الإيمان أي أقله ثمرة. The author said that if a person is not able to force another or to command, to order another person to stop missing the obligations or to stop doing them incorrectly, then if a person, for example, knows that someone is praying an invalid prayer or fasting an invalid fast, or that they did something which made the Hajj invalid, then here, if a person is not able to force them right, and so on, one needs to uh, one needs to in their heart show hate for that matter, for that haram matter that's going on. One must show hate for the action, for the deed of that person that is against the religion, that deed that they're doing. And this is in the heart, they would do that. So if a person hates that in the heart, then they would be safe from sin. And that is the least that a person can do. That's the least that a person can do. Sorry, where were we? Otherwise, if a person did not do anything and they didn't even hate it in their heart, then they would be sinful. Because they didn't go by what the Prophet said, عليه الصلاة والسلام. والمراد بالرؤية في حديث من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده إلى آخره العلم بوجود المنكر لا خصوص الرؤية بالبصر. So the hadith says whoever sees among you a haram matter, then let him change it with his hand. Let him amend it, put a stop to it with his hand. Let him stamp it out with his hand. Here the word ra'a is used. Usually ra'a means to see, to look. Okay? So what's mentioned here is that what is meant by ra'a, by the root word here, ru'ya, what is meant by this, in this hadith, is if a person knows about the existence of a haram, of something prohibited. If a person knows. So here seeing, if you will, has been used by the Prophet ﷺ to mean to know about it. So even if you didn't see it, if you knew about it, then the rules apply. It doesn't mean that a person specifically or particularly has to see with the eye. أما إن كان يستطيع الإنكار باليد أو القول فلا يكفيه الإنكار بالقلب. فهذه الكراهية لا تخلصه من معصية الله والسالم من أنكر إن استطاع بيده فإن عجز فبلسانه فإن عجز فبقلبه. This part says, if a person was able to prevent that happening with his hand or by saying something, if they were able and they didn't, it's not enough for them to just hate in the heart. Merely hating in the heart in this situation, when they were able to put a stop to it with their hand or by saying something, this hate that they have in the heart for it, it will not save them from a sin. Because you can't skip to stage 3, you've got to do stage 1 and 2. If you're able to do those two, then you go to the third one. If you're able to do if you're unable to do these two, if you're unable to say something with the tongue or stop it with the hand, if you're unable to do that, then you go to the third one, which is to hate in the heart. Otherwise, if you're able to say something, or you're actually able, you could do something with your tongue, with your hand to prevent that thing, and you skipped them and you went to number 3, this is sinful. وَالسَّالِمُ مَنْ أَنْكَرَ إِنْ اسْتَطَاعَ. The one who is safe is the one that prohibits the matter if he's able with his hand, and if he cannot with his hand, then with his tongue, him or her, and if he cannot or she cannot, then with the heart. If they're unable, then with the heart. فصل ويجب ترك جميع المحرمات ونهي مرتكبها ومنعه قهرا منها إن قدر عليه وإلا وجب عليه أن ينكر ذلك بقلبه. It is an obligation to abandon all sins, and it is an obligation to prohibit the one that commits them and to prevent him from them by force if he is able to do that. Otherwise, one would just uh, one would hate that, like we said, in the heart, hate the deed in the heart. الشرح أن ذلك فيما إذا كانت المنكرات نحو آلاء الطرب. الطرب. آلات الطرب. To look at that again. المحرمة والصور المجسمة فبتكسيرها لمن استطاع، وإن كانت خمورا فبإراقتها، وكل ذلك يشترط فيه ألا يؤدي فعله إلى منكر أعظم من ذلك المنكر، وإلا فلا يجوز، لأنه يكون عدولا عن الفساد إلى الأفسد، وهذا معنى قوله وإلا وجب عليه أن ينكر ذلك بقلبه. The Shaykh said, and this scenario mentioned, it is if let's say the haram matters that were going on, they were what? They were playing haram instruments that cause enchantment and rapture. Or if they were 3D statues or images of people or anything that could have a soul, then how would a person stamp that out with the hand? By breaking them. By breaking them. Breaking the idols, for example. It could be something else. It might be a doll in the shape of a grown woman. If it was alcohol, then by spilling it, pouring it. And the condition for all of this that you need to take care of is what? That what you do with your hand doesn't lead to a greater haram than the haram that you're trying to stamp out. Otherwise, if you know that it will lead to a greater harm, then you wouldn't be allowed to do it. Because then that would be reverting away or diverting away from something corrupt to something that is even more corrupt. And this is the meaning, وَإِلَّا وَجَبَ, a meaning of, otherwise it is an obligation for a person to deny or to prohibit, to hate that in the heart. Some definitions now, and these are important. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: الحرام ما توعد الله مرتكبه بالعقاب ووعد تاركه بالثواب وعكسه الواجب. So these are opposites. Al-haram is the opposite of al-wajib, an obligation. The author said, something haram is defined as what Allah threatened the committers of with. Allah threatened the committers of haram with punishment. So what is something haram? Something haram is that thing which Allah threatened the committers, those that committed it, Allah threatened them with torture. That's what haram is. And Allah promised those that don't do haram, and they actively don't do haram for the sake of Allah, they don't do it, they are rewarded. And the opposite is wajib. The opposite is the wajib. الشرح هذا تفسير للحرام والواجب، أي أن الحرام الذي فرض الله على عباده أن يجتنبوه معناه ما في ارتكابه عقاب في الآخرة وفي تركه ثواب، والواجب بمعنى الفرض ما في فعله ثواب وفي تركه عقاب. So this is uh, an explanation of something haram and something wajib. I.e., that something haram that Allah ordered us to stay away from means that which the doer of which could be punished for in the hereafter. And that which the one, and haram is that which the one who abandons it for the sake of Allah, he gets reward. And the wajib is the opposite. So the haram is something. If you do it, you are sinful. If you don't do it for the sake of Allah, you are rewarded. The wajib is the opposite. The wajib is if you do the wajib, you're rewarded. And if you don't do the wajib, then you're sinful. So it's opposite. Okay. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. We reached at-tahara was-salah, prayer and purification. We're going to start speaking about the prayer next time. MashaAllah. We'll cut this session short as we have reached this place. Let us say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. If anybody has a question, please feel free to ask while we say the tahleel. Otherwise, we'll finish, inshallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. There seem to be no questions or sorry, what is that? Okay. Is there? Yes, no questions. Barakallahu feek. All clear. Okay. Barakallahu feek. Okay. Mhm. Stop this.